My observation is that one good thing about technological advancement in Africa is that most of the e-platforms in the continent are owned and run by Africans. And then in terms of socio-geographical spread, Africa should be perfect for the use of digital e-commerce or distance selling, more especially if you look at the inadequate rail and road infrastructure across the continent. I'm a marketer myself, and I always say to people, digital platforms are the best way for one to market themselves beyond their national borders. And then if internet use across the continent can be expanded at the same rate as in high income countries, research shows that 140 million new jobs and over 2.2 billion US dollars, so a trillion US dollars will be added into Africa's GDP. This means it will push us to just over 5.6 trillion US dollars. And then without robust cutting edge enforcement, the African e-commerce market is vulnerable to exploitative practices that could harm African businesses and consumers alike. Occasionally, even in South Africa, we do have incidents of cyber crime, and the state security and law enforcement agencies, and sometimes even our law itself, will take time to respond to all this threat. And then if trade can flow freely between the AU member states, companies can benefit from economies of scale to grow their sales and therefore their production capacity. This is key to the success of intra-African trade as envisaged by the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement prescripts. The target initially was for us to increase it to 50% by 2022, but I guess at the time, because they didn't envisage the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, my guesstimate now, it could be that perhaps we could reach this by 2024, even though it still remains an aspiration that we can pursue. So I'm now going to hand over to you to introduce yourself and also to tell us about your company and your involvement in this space where we deploy technology into the agri space.
My name is Daniel Asare-Kyei. I'm a tech entrepreneur, but then also I'm a practicing farmer. I am also the Chief Executive Officer of Esoko, and Esoko is one of Africa's most vibrant agri-tech companies. And I'm also the chair and co-founder of Adinkra Frontier, which is a company with interest in sustainable poultry production and value addition. I have been working in the African agricultural technology space for the past 17 years. I've been an ardent promoter of African technological drive, especially using ICT to drive digital and financial inclusion among African rural folks. I am really interested in using technology to solve real-life problems that affect people in rural communities across Africa, especially when it comes to smallholder farmers. So my interest has really been how to use technology to address most of the teething problems that affect smallholder agriculture in Africa. My background is in geoinformation science, that is GIS, remote sensing, and then agricultural economics. Now, about Esoko has been a pioneer in the African agri-tech landscape. We have been helping enterprises manage rural communities since 2008. Traditionally, our main work was focused on content service to farmers, so information services delivered via mobile channels like SMS, IVR was what we used to do. But now, our platform now provides a much more powerful data collection and digitalization tools, content messaging, payment gateways to rural foes. You've been working in 20 African countries, reach over 1.2 million farmers. You've innovative information services and provide a digital footprint to several rural people who lives in African rural communities. So that's a bit about Esoko ourselves. Like I said, we are based out of Ghana and we operate in the African landscape, agricultural landscape, for the past 13 or so years. So thank you very much for having me, Sal, and very happy to be part of this exciting conversation this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you for your intervention, Doc. What mechanisms has your company put in place towards improving supply chain efficiency for farmers? And what technologies have you leveraged to do this?
All right, thank you very much for the question. So essentially, Esoko has identified 4 main challenges within agricultural value chains across Africa. And these challenges have been supply chain disruptions, especially in the era of COVID-19. 2 is knowledge and information asymmetry within agricultural value chains. And then 3 is lack of visibility and traceability within rural supply chains. And the 4th one is lack of access to financial services. I'm just going to take each of these one by one and try to show how we have leveraged technology to solve some of these supply chain inefficiencies within our African agricultural sector. So Esoko's main aim has been to use the powers of mobile devices and web technologies to solve these challenges, and that have contributed to the poor performance of the African agricultural sector. For example, to minimize the supply chain disruptions caused by COVID-19, we expanded our base and offers functionality into a much more broader range of broader marketplace that allows smallholder farmers to sell their crops online. So if you're a farmer living anywhere in the country, we're able to post and offer, say, 100 tons of soybean or 100 bags of maize on our platform. And then once you paste that, any buyer, all the buyers that are on the platform will be notified via SMS or via IVR services. And then they can then contact you to be able to transact a business. So that's a typical way of solving supply chain disruptions that was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, especially from 2020 to date. Now, the second thing that we do is that to break the information and knowledge asymmetry in agricultural value chains, Esoko has digitized a whole range of content to train farmers on any agricultural topic. So, for instance, we have over 1.2 million farmers across 20 countries in Africa who have access to our highly priced content on good agricultural practices, post-harvest management, agronomic advisories, tropical weather forecasts, and market price information. These highly rich and actionable content are disseminated to farmers over mobile channels such as SMS, IVR, voice message, and even call center. So farmers can call our call center and then ask for any information about agriculture or any topic of interest. So this course that was set up in 2014, and then today you've answered more than 30 million calls from over 500,000 farmers in Ghana alone. Now, in addition, you have deployed 2 high-tech innovations that deals with the issue of post-harvest law during transport of agricultural commodities between African countries, especially in the West African transport corridor. These technologies actually help people to be able to become much more efficient and in transporting commodities across the various countries. For instance, most of the transporters, consumers, growers were able to now communicate most of the value chain shortcomings during transportation of high-value crops within West African trade corridor. The app also actually enabled these people to tap into chains of horticultural intelligence, which leads to better informed decisions. This in turn reduces cost, increased profit for value chain actors, leads to lower market prices for consumers, and then fairer prices for growers and better interventions by public and private sector agents. So we've done a lot of work in this space, trying to help people to improve on their supply chain efficiencies within Africa. The third thing that you do is our platform allows value chain actors to digitize their operations, so track field-based projects, monitor things like input distribution, crop performance, crop purchases, track inventory, or even take stocks. So value chain leaders can now sit at the comfort of their homes or offices and gain real-time visibility using powerful AI-powered web dashboards. And so if you are here, like maybe you are a value chain leader who wants to buy or trade in commodities from all over the country, you are able to use our platform and our tools to actually gain real-time information about what your agents or what your officers are doing in the field. Now, this information helps you to plan better and it makes you much more efficient. Currently, payments for most Africans high-value crops such as cocoa, tea, cotton are done via cash, and so people have to transport a whole lot of money between countries. Now, we have developed a payment solution that allow people to be paid through the platform. So let's say you have 10,000 farmers who have supplied you with any commodity. You can just go to a web dashboard, credit all the mobile money accounts of these farmers, and instantly all of them will be paid. So this really is very, very important. So the ability to actually to leverage your mobile money infrastructure to pay thousands or millions of farmers from computer despots anytime is going to be a critical enabler of Africa's digital transformation agenda. So these are a few examples of the things that we have done in leveraging technology to try to improve supply chain inefficiencies within the African agriculture sector. Thank you.
In fact, that's very profound, Doc. Just to give slight statistics, Simon Kemp has done research and he realized that even though you may allude some of this to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, has said that in the past 12 months, the number of global internet users have escalated by over 300 million. And then this means that over 900,000 people per day were logging onto the internet. And then he said this has brought us to a cumulative total reach of 4.7 billion from the beginning of April 2021. And as I speak to you, the number has increased and has been increasing every day. So he's saying while the global population has increased nominally by 1%, higher compared to last year at the same time in April to 7.85 billion, the number of internet users has increased by 7.6% since 2020. Right now, we are looking at over 4.7 billion people connected to the internet, which means over 60% of the world's population is now connected to the internet. Later on, I will talk about, even though I'll just concentrate on your regional capitals. I'll look at internet penetration in South Africa, in Kenya for the East Africa, in Nigeria for West Africa, and also in Egypt for North Africa. It's a pity the numbers are not that great for Central Africa, so I won't be talking to those. But okay, tell us, what are the major roadblocks to adopting supply chain technologies across the continent, and how can these impediments be dealt with?
All right, thank you very much. So just a bit on what the point that you just made about internet penetration within Africa. I mean, if you look at those numbers that you said, I mean, in many African countries, most of these internet connects are done through mobile devices. So whereas in other parts of the world, people are accessing internet through computers, in many African countries, really through mobile. So technologies based on mobile connectivity and the use of mobile devices has become very, very important. It's going to become very, very important. And so now, to your question, so the major challenges that affect the complete digitization of African supply chain, I mean, there are many. I'm just going to focus on just about 3 of them. One, there's lack of post-harvest infrastructure, such as warehouses, cold storage, inadequate on-farm storage facilities. There are inaccessible farming communities like poor road network, including near absence of rail transportation in many African countries. I mean, across many African countries, internet, road, and even rail access is virtually non-existent. And this really impacts on complete digitization of African trade. Now, beyond these hardware barriers to effectively supply chain digitization, there are also several what are called software-related barriers, such as lack of standards or structured marketing systems, non-tariff barriers when it comes to cross-border or regional trade. Now, so for me, these are the major challenges that affect complete digitization of African agriculture sector, especially when it comes to supply chain improvement. And so lack of infrastructure, inaccessible communities, poor road network, all this has to do with it. But also there are several software related aspects, like lack of regulations, lack of standards, lack of non-tariff barriers that exist within several countries. Now, for me to be able to summon these challenges, I think African governments need to understand that agriculture doesn't end with production. I mean, most of the programs currently being implemented across Africa are meant to increase agricultural biological productivity. But then, beyond on-farm productivity increases, we need to invest in post-harvest infrastructure, especially building post-harvest terminals in major farming districts, complementing them with the setting up of commodity aggregation centers, your facility for weighing, sorting, grading, etc., etc. Now, this kind of thing promotes standardization, but without standards, it becomes very, very, very difficult to completely digitize supply chain issues within Africa. Now, the emergence of commodity exchange in several African countries is a great step in this direction, but they must be complemented with modern post-harvest terminal facilities in major farming beds to optimize the operation of these commodity exchanges. Now, talk about the software-related issue, with the software-related barriers, which has to do with standards, regulations, and so on and so forth. Now, I think that we need to be able to enforce existing rules as well as developing structured marketing system. We have good examples to show, especially in this regard. For example, in Ghana, the concept of state-led commodity aggregation and marketing in the area of cocoa has been one of the most successful stories in improving supply chain efficiency in the sector. I mean, this kind of thing can be really be replicated several other commodities like cashews, like cotton, like maize, like fruit and vegetables, and all this. So really, if you can really improve supply chain digitization, going to be this proper standards, proper marketing structures put in place to ensure that everybody who will operate along the chain understand what is at stake, what the quality issues are, and how to keep track of these quality issues. So these are a few examples that I think we really need to pay attention to be able to improve supply chain efficiencies within the African continent.
Thank you very much for your intervention, my good doctor. The statistics show that in South Africa, out of a population of 59.67 million people, 38.19 million have access to internet. And this represents a 4.5 increase from 2020, meaning the increase was about 1.7 million people. And then if you look in Nigeria, out of the population of 208.8 million as of January 2021, exactly 50% of the population, 104.4 million, have access to the internet. And this represents a huge increase of 22% from 2020 to 2021, meaning they managed to onboard 19 million new subscribers, internet subscribers in Nigeria. And then in Egypt, out of a population of 103.3 million, you have 59.19 million internet users, which represents an increase of 80%, meaning 4.5 million more people were onboarded. And then if you look at Egypt, the population is 95 million people, and then they recorded an increase of 2.7 million new internet users from January 22 to January 2021, and they say internet penetration in Egypt, especially mobile, as you were saying, Doc, is 92.7% of the population. In Kenya, 54 million people, they recorded a 1.2 million more people onboarded onto the internet. And then you have 11 people who are social media users, and even with that, you are looking at extra 2.2 million people having added, and all in all, you have 59.24 million mobile connections in Kenya. Yes, we do agree that some people do have 1 or 2 or even 3 mobile gadgets, but these are very impressive numbers that basically calls on each and every entrepreneur in Africa to embrace digital technology.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And I read these are very, very straight and very, very relevant questions. I mean, so how do you control quality risk, tally risk, but also supply side risk? So essentially, for this kind of service to work very well, what you have done is to do what you call the digital enabled agents at the community level. So whenever an farmer makes an offer to sell the platform, you got to have agents who can go to certify, first of all, not only the quality, but even the quantity and the volume that are available to be sold. So what happened that normally if you don't do that, you connect the two, the seller and the buyer, you may end up getting an inferior product, or even the volumes may not be as the person already said they have. And so that's very, very important. That's also one side that made this whole service very, very difficult to run. Essentially, they got to be able to have people on the ground that's able to go out there and ascertain whatever the person who's making the offer actually is saying. And so you got agents who are digitally enabled, so they can go out there, take samples, check things like just moisture content of grains, for instance. Be able to know, okay, of course, these grains actually has a very high, good moisture content. And these are the quality, this is the volume that are available for sale. So these things are very, very important. I think it's also asking about the buyer default rate. So essentially, we got to be able to run this thing on the base of trust. If we don't trust each other, this kind of services or supply chain and e-commerce platform may not be easy to implement. So people need to trust that whoever is making an offer to sell, of course, is able to sell, and is also going to be able to buy for it. So, but what you do is that you don't normally intervene when it comes to the transactions. So once we are certified that the products are there, the quality is good, the volumes is there, you connect the two, and the two of them begin to talk. And then if they trust each other very well, then they can now look at, okay, how do I get paid, and how do you get transport the whatever product to me? So these are very, 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 very fundamentals that need to be addressed for this company to be able to work very well. You need to be able to have that ground presence that's able to ascertain the quality, the quantity, and then you now match the two. And then in the future, we actually implement an AI platform on an AI algorithm on our platform that's able to kind of use the previous learnings, the previous experience to actually match a buyer and seller properly. And so you can be able to show that this person I'm going to deal with, this is his history. This is how other people have rated him or her. And so I'm much more comfortable dealing with this same person in the future. Yeah, thank you.
My colleague who runs a sister company to Brandhill Africa marketing agency is Steven Mukhalapa. He runs Brandhill Africa Institute of Public Diplomacy. He has a question and a comment. I'll read the comment. He says, in fact, he amplifies what you were saying. Supply chain technology is the new smart agriculture way of doing business online. Purchasing methods are the new normal business for agriculture. Innovative and creative, affordable ICT platforms are needed to ensure small-scale farmers can sell their products online and market them. Then his question is, how do you ensure accessibility and affordability of the quality ICT supply chain purchases for small-scale farmers in rural and remote areas?
Yeah, another very, very important question. So essentially, back to the point you were making about internet connectivity and smartphone penetration in Africa, it comes to that. Right, what you've seen that most of the smallholder farmers in Africa are not using smartphones. And so they on their own cannot even go to any platform and do some of this that you're talking about here. So there's got to be somebody there that mediates between the farmers and the tech platform that we have. And that's why digitally enabled agents are very, very important when it comes to services like this. So because there'll be the gap of accessibility and there'll be the gap of literacy. I mean, as you know, illiteracy is very, very major problem in Africa, but digital illiteracy is much higher. And so when you have any digital service, you've got to be able to find a way to let the smallholder farmers understand and how to mediate, how to navigate what they are doing. A simple SMS may not even be read. Farmers may not even be able to go through their phones and check for SMS or even delete old SMS messages. So it's very, very important that to ensure that they have access to the services, got to have somebody that mediate between the technology and the farmers. And that's how you've done it at Esoko, that you got people on the ground that's able, that are well trained, that are also digitally enabled. They have smartphones, they have smart devices, and they are able to train the farmers, virtually handhold them throughout the process so they can be able to do it. I mean, the challenge of that is it's also very, very difficult to scale. So if you want to scale this kind of intervention across the whole, say, West Africa, you've got to have thousands and thousands of agents on the ground. But that's really, for now, that's really one of the very effective ways of doing that kind of services within the continent. Yeah, thank you. I hope I've answered the question very well for him. Yeah.
In the book development space in South Africa, we have also developed a coinage called literacy. Literacy refers to people who are literate, but they are just too lazy or reluctant to read. I think in your space, you will call them people suffering from technophobia, that they are too scared of using
exactly.
Yeah. I have three very interesting comments from Paresh Kotecha. And then I see one is a question where you respond to those, you will also be giving your closing remarks. He says, I agree this is the smarter way to do the business, but how is the price risk volatility managed? The longer the period from the time of contact to delivery, the higher the default risk. What is required is not only a price discovery platform, but a risk mitigation platform incorporated in this infrastructure. And then he thanks you for your answers, and he suggests that a digital banking or clearing operation should be the way to go as a platform.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paresh, for these very, very useful comments and suggestions. So, yeah, so digital banking and I mean, those things are really, really going to be very, very important when these kind of services become really, really common, especially when it comes to reducing the gap between when the commodities are sold and when the commodities are paid for. Back to the question we're talking about the price risk volatility. So those are things that essentially we are able to get enough financial institutions under the who can actually even pre-finance some of these purchases from the smallholder farmer. Then some of these issues could be addressed. But to conclude, I mean, I just want to outline some of the benefits that you've seen supply chain digitization really having on African smallholder farmers. So from our experience, you have seen smallholder farmers increasing their incomes by at least 10% just by having access to market price information. We have seen entire communities earning better prices just because their bargaining power has increased as a result of access to accurate market information, and therefore they are able to negotiate better with buyers and aggregators. We have seen situations where farmers refuse to sell their crops at their villages, but they're able to haul a truck, go to a nearby market, and then get 500% more in their prices. So essentially, leveraging mobile and web technology to improve supply chain efficiency has the added benefit of really leapfrogging many challenges in traditional agriculture in Africa. For instance, when you run our Cheetah pilot program to track real-time the decay of perishable during transportation, the technology allowed all value chain actors to be informed of all the conditions that affect road quality, post-harvest issues, and also all the things that impede trade and free flow of goods and services. This real-time information generated and disseminated via mobile channels help to promote transparency and accountability among agriculture value chain actors. So really, we really need to take this kind of services very, very seriously if you really want to transform smallholder agriculture in Africa. So these are just my closing remarks that agricultural transformation is really key, and digital services, digital technologies play a very, very important role in helping us to really leapfrog some of the traditional challenges that affect agricultural development and issues in Africa. So thank you very much for having me on this program. I'm very excited to be part of this conversation. Thank you, and thank you for the questions also.